All right, guys, this clip comes from Young America's Foundation. Got Larry Elder, goes, no holds barred. These are the left's 3 big lies about racism. Now, Larry Elder, I'm familiar with. I've seen this documentary, and it was awesome. And I've seen some other clips from Larry, but we gonna see what are the 3 big lies. So let's get right on into it. Before I start the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We're almost at 1K. Let's keep it going. Now let's get into it, you guys.
The largest problem facing the black community is not systemic racism, not the need for critical race theory, not the need for reparations. The largest problem facing the black community is the large number of black children who enter the world without a father married to the mother.
Wow. I gotta agree with Larry on that. If you balance it like a scale, you put the racism and everything else on this side, and what he said, fatherless children and broken family structure, I lean more on the latter.
Eric Holder gave a speech around the time this controversy was going on. And he said, blatant racism, the kind of racism that Donald Sterling was doing, we got that. That's not the problem. It's the pernicious racism in America that's the problem. And he gave 3 examples. Example number 1, he called pernicious racism is the move for voter ID. The problem with calling that pernicious racism is that the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that voter ID was a legitimate way of ensuring voter integrity. And the person who wrote the case was John Paul Stevens, the most liberal justice there. Virtually every poll I've ever seen finds black people support voter ID almost to the same level as whites do.
I mean, yeah, it's voter ID. You need an ID to go vote. What's racist about that? Tell me one thing that's racist about that. Every black person I know and have ever met has an ID. You gotta have an ID to buy cigarettes. You gotta have an ID to vote. You gotta have an ID to get into clubs. You gotta have an ID to buy legal marijuana. You gotta have an ID to do so many things, to have a gun. So what about having an ID is racist? And if having an ID for voting is racist, wouldn't that mean that having an ID for anything else is racist? So now IDs are racist? You see how if you go down this slippery slope, nothing makes sense?
So if the move towards voter ID is racist, you have to explain to me why majority of blacks support a racist move toward voter ID. It's nonsense. The second thing he said was that a black criminal who commits the same criminal as does a white criminal gets a longer sentence, and that's true. The U.S. Sentencing Commission, on which Ketanji Brown Jackson used to sit, found that the average black criminal compared to the white criminal gets about a 19.5% longer sentence than does the white criminal.
Okay, now this is something you will hear commonly when, debating someone who's on the left, like the sensible people even, you know what I mean? And yeah, like he said, it's true. But with every statistic, and I think I said this before on the channel, you gotta extrapolate on it and break it down to further and more deeply see the reasons why this happening. There's a surface level statistic, but then you have to break it down, almost like divide it and think of the categories or variables or reasons why the statistic happens.
But the Sentencing Commission also said this, which Eric Holder did not mention in the speech, that the average criminal has more convictions than the average white criminal. Average black criminal has more convictions than the average white criminal. And judges take that into consideration when they determine the sentencing. Mm-hmm. And they said the reason for the discrepancy was because of legitimate variables.
Bingo, variables. Like you said, longer rap sheet of crimes, of convictions, that plays a part. And that's only one of them. Let's just be real. There is also the aspect of you bumping into the wrong cop on the wrong day. Like we would all be liars to say that has never happened to anybody or that doesn't exist. It does. But you gotta look at the majority over the minority, the probability over the possibility.
The third thing that that Toller said was pernicious racism is the fact that black boys are kicked out more than are white boys in any given high school. Jesse Jackson, some years ago, when Decatur, Illinois school board kicked out a bunch of black boys after a football game, they were fighting, so they kicked out a bunch of black boys. And Jesse Jackson flew in and accused the Decatur school board, all white, of being racist, systemically racist, for kicking out these boys, and he filed a lawsuit against them. And the Decatur school board noted that irrespective of the race of the teacher, of the race of the principal, of the race of the school board, all around the country, black boys were disproportionately kicked out of school compared to white boys. Even in Oakland, where the school board was all people of color, black boys were kicked out disproportionately compared to white boys. That's because they were acting out.
Yeah, so pernicious, like causing great harm, for, what did he say, Jesse Jackson, for him to go and do that, accusing blanketly these people, this school board, of being racist, without further extrapolating on the statistics or even just getting the true story, that is pernicious, because that does great harm. That helps to feed this narrative that divides the country and that just does so much division. So
it was completely, totally untrue. The largest problem facing the black community is not systemic racism, not the need for critical race theory, not the need for reparations. The largest problem facing the black community is the large number of black children who enter the world without a father married to the mother.
Yo, no, I just gotta say, I was fortunate. My mother and father weren't married, but they managed to put aside their differences and live in the same house to raise me all the way up through high school. So I had a 2-parent household, and I couldn't imagine it without either one of them being there. I really couldn't, and I'm thankful for both of them. I couldn't agree with that more. If most of you younger kids, even the older people, if most of you guys think about your life, you would and you have both your parents, you would probably agree with me on that. But that was the video, you guys. That was a good one. Shout out to Young America's Foundation. Shout out to Larry Elder. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe on the way out. Until next time, peace.